The ones we laughed with?
How did the stars of Storage Wars really get away? Where were the people we laughed with, cheered for, and watched win or lose? Some well-known actors have disappeared from TV and movies over the years, leaving fans to wonder, did something terrible happen? Did things go badly behind the scenes? Or did they just leave the spotlight? Even though it's not as bad as the rumors say, the truth is still shocking. Barry Weiss did more than just appear on Storage Wars. He made the show what it was. It was clear that people were watching a special person as soon as he drove up to his first sale in one of his classic cars wearing his trademark gloves and grin. It was never Barry who made the biggest or most aggressive bids. He instead brought something the show really needed. Real, pure happiness. Barry looked at every storage locker as if it were a treasure chest ready to be opened. Other cast members were more interested in business strategies and profit margins. When he opened a unit, he didn't just see money. He saw stories, history, and excitement. He would talk about the songs the old jukebox used to play more than figuring out how much it was worth again when he found one. He would get as excited as a child on Christmas morning when he found old collectibles. Barry knew that what you could sell wasn't always the real prize. Sometimes it was the thrill of not knowing what you would find next. His attitude to the show was very different, which was nice. Before the Storage Wars, Barry had already made a lot of money in the fruit and vegetable business. He wasn't trying to stay alive at the sales, he was just having fun. Because he was free. He could take chances that other people wouldn't, bid on units that didn't seem to be worth anything, and pass up sure things that didn't interest him. People loved this about him, because it made them remember why they loved the show in the first place, the thrill of finding something new. Because of Barry's attitude, even the most boring things were fun to look at. A box of old books could become the subject of an interesting conversation about authors who are no longer known. And a dirty piece of furniture could become a lesson in how things were made decades ago. What he knew wasn't just on the surface either. Barry really knew about old things, collectibles, and the stories behind them. He cared about the things he found and gave each one the respect it deserved. But Barry quietly quit the show after only 4 seasons. There was neither a dramatic exit nor a heated fight with the producers. He just decided that part of his life was over and was done with. What someone does when they finish a favorite book, and putting it back on the shelf carefully. Fans were upset, but most of them understood. Barry had never seemed like the type of person who needed attention. He was just a normal guy who liked telling other people about his experiences. Barry stayed out of the public eye for a few years after leaving Storage Wars. He went back to doing the things he loved before, like collecting old cars, looking for antiques, and going on trips that didn't need cameras or TV crews. He would sometimes show up in interviews or as a guest, always with the same warm smile and contagious energy that made him famous. Weiss's life looked good until 2019 when everything changed. Barry was in a terrible accident while riding his favorite motorcycle through the streets of Los Angeles. He had serious injuries to his chest and legs, as well as several broken bones and major damage to his internal organs. He had always seemed unbeatable, like he could walk into any storage unit without fear. Suddenly, he was in the hospital fighting for his life. It took a long time and was hard to get better. Barry had a lot of surgeries and had to spend months recovering. The hands that used to carefully look at old treasures had to learn how to do simple things all over again. His legs had to remember how to walk without hurting after all the sales he had been to. For someone who had such an exciting and busy life, being forced to be still must have been very hard. Still, Barry's spirit got him through it. It was the same spirit that made Storage Wars fans love him. He went about his recovery with the same calm and interested attitude he used when he was looking through storage boxes. He didn't rush the healing process or get angry when things went wrong. Instead, he looked at it like another journey and took it one day at a time. Fans were thrilled to see Barry again when he finally started going out in public again. His sense of humor and warm smile were still there. His pace was different, though. He was a little more careful with his steps and his words. He was different after the accident, but it didn't break his spirit. Dave Hester. If table tennis was like Storage Wars, Dave Hester would slam his chips down with a grin to scare everyone else. He was the man you loved to hate from the very first show. Dave loved competing. He was loud, sure of himself, and never afraid to beat someone's price by $1. He signed his work with the famous word, "Yoop," which made the other buyers mad. He wanted the most money, the best room, and the last word. But things changed quickly for Dave in 2018. He had a stroke late one night that made it hard for him to talk and move around. Not in front of a storage unit, but in a hospital bed, where he would spend weeks getting better. It was embarrassing for a man who liked being in charge. Dave was not on the show for a while. The man used to fight hard over dirty boxes, but now he was fighting for his own health. He slowly got stronger and went back to the auction world. Fans saw that he had changed. Even though Storage Wars was no longer his main show, he seemed calmer and less interested in fighting all the time. Instead, he seemed more interested in living life. Even though people didn't miss his pranks, they looked up to the man who fought his way back from a dangerous situation. It showed that even the biggest voice needs to be quiet for a while in order to be heard again. Ivy Calvin didn't just walk into storage fights. He walked in like he owned the place. Ivy used to play indoor football and do mixed martial arts. When he walked in, people stepped aside because he was so sure of himself. He was known as the King of Palmdale and could quickly find an expensive locker. Ivy's goal in the storage game wasn't just to make money. It was also to keep things under control. He was proud of Grandma's attic, his used goods shop, where everything had a place. He was the type of buyer who could look through a pile of dusty blankets and find a real gem. He also had time to joke around with his rivals. Fans did notice something though over time. He wasn't as often around. He still had a big laugh and a competitive edge, but they didn't happen as often. Ivy worked on his health and spent more time with his family when he wasn't in front of the cameras. In later shows, his boys often came with him, which turned the auctions into fun family events instead of stressful battles. By taking a step back without making a fuss, Ivy showed that the biggest wins don't always happen in front of everyone. Daryl Sheets. Barry Weiss was the cool uncle, and Daryl Sheets was the crazy older cousin, someone who would risk their last dollar just to win. Daryl lived up to his name as the gambler, because he was always looking for the big win. He wasn't afraid to throw a lot of money at a locker if he thought it might hold something amazing. He often brought his son Brandon with him. There, he learned how to take smart chances and sometimes why he shouldn't. This was more than just business for Daryl. It was about giving his son something to be proud of. But things changed in early 2019. Daryl had a normal day until all of a sudden he had chest pain. At first, he didn't pay attention to it, but it got worse. And soon he was really having a heart attack. It wasn't just a health risk. It was a matter of life and death. The man who loved energy had to slow down. Not by choice, but because they have to. The show was missing something when he wasn't there. Fans missed the big wins, the bigger losses, and the way he never backed down. There is Brandy Passanti and Jared Scholes. They were like the couple next door. Everyone invited them to every party, because they were so fun to watch. From the very first show, it was clear that they were nothing alike. Brandy is calm and collected, while Jared is full of, "Let's just wing it" energy. She would stare intently into a storage locker as she considered whether the stack of boxes was worth the risk. He would already be dying to make a bid just for the fun of it. What made them fun was the push and pull. You could almost see Brandy rolling her eyes as Jared went after something that didn't seem right, and you could see Jared smile when she was right. They were able to keep each other in check. He made things exciting. She brought care. They made choices together, and sometimes they worked out great, and sometimes not so great. Along with their finds, they sometimes ran their own thrift store on the show. But things were changing behind the jokes and arguments. When no one was watching, their relationship was having a hard time. Around 2020, the news slowly spread. They were no longer together. There wasn't a big fight on TV or in public. It happened right now. Brandy later gave hints that the relationship had not been easy. She didn't tell me everything. Her words were few and far between, but they made it clear that it had been hard and painful. Once they were no longer together, Brandy focused on her kids instead of her busy shooting schedule. For his part, Jared also disappeared from view. The show felt different without their back and forth. Fans missed both of them, not just one or the other. They showed that treasure hunts aren't always about old things and collecting them. Some people find real value in the way they get along with each other, even if it doesn't last. Renee and Casey Enzoda. Renee and Casey brought a whole new vibe to Storage Wars when they joined. Renee's deep voice could be heard over anyone, and he had a good sense of what things were worth. Casey, on the other hand, kept him in check with his friendly attitude and careful attention to detail. There was no doubt that they were serious about being partners. They got along great in the storage business and in real life. Renee knew what it was like to buy and sell things. He had grown up with it, and had spent years looking for treasures and making money off of them. Casey wasn't just going with the flow. She was good at things like finding good deals and running the business side of things. They were a great team when they worked together. Some of them were also not afraid to have fun. They talked to each other in a fun way on screen, but it was always clear that they trusted each other's gut feelings. They had a party when they won a lot of money. They just ignored it when a locker didn't work and went on. Life, though, has a way of changing our minds. Renee's father died in 2023 after a short illness with lung cancer. When Renee talked about it, his friends could tell how he felt because it was a hard time. He said he was very thankful for the help he got from fans and friends. The loss seemed to change the couple's path so that it was less about getting the next big win and more about making something that would last. And Laura Dotson. A lot of fans say that Storage Wars wouldn't be the same without Dan Dotson's rhythmic chant, or his wife Laura's happy smile. That's not what they were there for. To keep the sales going, and they did it in style. Dan had been running auctions for a long time before the show. His fast-paced speech could make even a bunch of old boxes sound interesting. Laura was standing right next to him, which kept the mood happy and upbeat. No matter how tense the bidding got, they kept the pace going. In 2014, though, their world was very close to breaking apart. Dan felt strange when he woke up one morning. He had trouble seeing, and within minutes he passed out. Laura didn't think twice. She rushed him to the hospital right away. A brain tumor was quickly found to be the cause. The situation was very bad. Dan might not have lived without emergency surgery. The surgery was dangerous, and getting better was even worse. He worked on getting stronger for months, and Laura was there for him the whole time. Fans were glad when he finally came back to the sale block. Even though he was moving a little more slowly than before. Things changed for them after the scare. They still loved the world of auctions, but they knew that things can change quickly. They seemed to smile and laugh a little bigger and warmer after hearing that. Mary Padian. Mary Padian wasn't like the other people who bid. While many of her competitors walked up to the storage lockers with a calculator in their hand, trying to figure out how much they could make and how much the items would be worth again, Mary seemed to treat each bid like a fun adventure. A dusty box wasn't just a dusty box to her. This item could be a lost piece of history or a diamond in the rough ready to be found again. When she first came on the Texas spin-off Storage Wars, Texas, her imagination made her stand out right away. Mary had worked as a reporter in the past, is good at art and design. She used to help the editor of Architectural Digest. She learned to look for one-of-kind pieces and picture what they could become because of that. On the show, she would often dig through a locker, pull out something most people would pass by, like an old trunk or a worn-out chair, and immediately think of a way to fix it up into something lovely. Her fashion sense was happy, unique, and warm. Other people sometimes got into arguments over bids, but Mary's attitude was friendlier and more cooperative. She became close with other cast members, and would sometimes work with them to break down a locker. People loved seeing her get truly excited about a find, no matter how small, because it was easy to catch her excitement. Mary brought that same charm with her when she moved from the Texas version to the original Storage Wars, which took place in California. She didn't just buy and sell things, she rethought, reworked, and changed her finds into one-of-a-kind pieces that were both beautiful and useful. Fans called her the Junkster because she could take junk and turn it into gems. But as time went on, Mary showed up less and less. She changed her focus to running her online store, where she could sell the things she had fixed up to people who liked creative upcycling as much as she did. She also started working on personal projects, traveling, and looking for new chances when she wasn't filming all the time. Fans still feel Mary's spirit, even though she's not on the show as often as she used to be. She showed that Storage Wars wasn't just about making money, it could also be about love, creativity, and finding beauty in strange places. Emily Wares may have joined Storage Wars later than most, but she came with a lot of experience. When she came back for season 10, she had already won several awards as an auctioneer. She had started working as one when she was only 17 years old in Iowa. Her father, who was also in the auction business, taught her, and she quickly became known for her lightning, fast chanting and sure-of-herself stage appearance. When she joined the show, it added something different. She did not place a bid. Of course, she was there to make sure the sales went smoothly. Emily's style was clean and put together. Her speed on the mic impressed even the group members who had been there for a while. At age 27, she was one of the youngest professional auctioneers to ever appear on the show. This broke gender norms in a field that is usually controlled by older men. Emily had won a lot of auctioneering events before she joined Storage Wars, which made her stand out in the field. She kept things interesting on the show and wasn't afraid to joke around with the buyers, often responding quickly to what they said. People liked how she had both skill and charm, and she quickly gained fans. She was only on Storage Wars for a season or two, but Emily's leaving wasn't because of a problem. She chose to focus on her personal life instead. She married the man she had been seeing for a long time, started a family, and even followed another love of hers, singing. She started playing at local events and posting her music online, which showed that she was talented in more ways than just auctioning off her skills. Kenny Crossley. Even in a busy auction, you couldn't help but spot Kenny Crossley. It was easy to get along with him because of his strong southern drawl and quick wit. He could make even a bad locker situation funny. Kenny wasn't just there to buy storage units, he also wanted to have fun, meet new people, and enjoy the ride. Kenny came from New Orleans and had a full life before he joined the group of Storage Wars. He had been a police officer, owned his own business, and done a few other odd jobs here and there. All of these jobs gave him a lot of stories to tell. A friend named Barry Weiss, who was one of the show's strangest and most loved stars, helped him get into the world of storage auctions. At first, he showed up with Barry and helped him on his crazy shopping trips. Fans liked him right away because he was funny and really down to earth. Kenny stayed on the show after Barry left and made a name for himself among the regulars. He was not serious about bidding. He didn't like getting into fights over lockers. He chose his own spots instead, sometimes going for smaller units that other people missed. His ability to find strange and interesting things went well with his fun attitude. Over the years, Kenny became famous for his funny one-liners and ability to make people laugh, even when bidding is very heated. He was funny to everyone around him, whether they were on the show or watching at home. Kenny started showing up less and less over time. It wasn't because of fights or drama. Just like that, he focused on other things, like his own dress line and a donut shop. It was still noticed that he wasn't there. A lot of his fans ask online where he is, and if he'll come back.